Hello and welcome to another episode of Conf T with your SE. I am your host, Brian Young, and I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Tom Porto. How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, thank you. I see you're still building a snowman in the background. You're still in your daughter's playroom there?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I just found out last week that my carpet won't be here for another week. So
Nice.
maybe one more episode will be from this room.
Nice. We're looking forward to getting into the new room. And if you need a handyman, we have the one and only Cisco Sal, also known as just Sal the Builder. You know, I mean, this guy, if you haven't seen his YouTube channel, man, he'll wear a hard hat and review anything under the sun. If it's got a printed circuit board in it, he'll review it. Mr. Sal Lamura, how are you, sir?
Doing well. How you doing, Brian?
I'm good. I hear you're going to be installing a smart fan pretty soon.
Maybe I'll document. I'll share it with you guys so you can see it. Just came in the mail. It's Sunday.
There we go. Oh man, I still love the episode of your wife driving around with that tractor in the background. That thing is that is the best demo of Babel Labs I've ever seen. And joining us for the first time ever on Conf T with your SC is our friend Patrick Canane. How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you guys?
Doing good.
Thanks for having me on, by the way. First time around.
Hey, you know what? It's been a long time coming. I know you and I chatted a while ago. Patrick has his own YouTube channel. We'll be sure to include the link in the show notes for you to check it out. But it is all about. Actually, why don't you describe it? It's all about Cisco certs, but I'll let you take a minute.
Yeah, I do a lot with Cisco certs, specifically in the collaboration side of things. But I have a lot that I want to do on there, like more Linux stuff, a little more some Python stuff in there. But with starting the new role that I'm in now, I have to do a lot more ramping up, learning cloud collaboration, which is good because eventually I'll start putting more cloud collab stuff onto the channel as well.
Very cool. Very cool. And you'll be happy to know Tom and I have been on the Discord server, which again, we'll put the links in the show notes for people who want to join. We brought up the show that we're doing now, mentioned your name, and there were a couple people who were like, "Hey, you know Pat? Like, I know Pat. He's a good
sweet.
guy."
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, it's fun. It definitely gets around. Word gets around. So awesome. So we have this elaborate panel of fine gentlemen here to talk about the Cisco Live event that happened last week. And just kind of go over some of the announcements, some of the takeaways that we had, and just kind of give you guys a recap because it was a 2-day event. There was a lot of breakout sessions, and of course, if you didn't have the all access pass, there would a lot of content that you weren't able to get to. We obviously won't be able to cover a 2-day event that big in such a short episode here, but wanted to cover on some of the highlights that we came across, and of course, recommend that you go and check out the recordings. Pat, did you have a session as well?
I have a Meet the Author session coming up on the 8th where we'll talk about the Advanced Call Control and Mobility official cert guide that we put out there. So it'll be myself and Gonzalo and Paul and Kaiser, the other co-authors that were on there.
Okay.
And so I think last time we looked, we had like 132 people signed up to attend it.
Nice.
And that was maybe a week ago that we looked.
So that's a live event you're going to be doing on the 8th. And then that'll be available for public consumption. And I think they do everything 3 months after the live event, right?
I'm not too sure about that part of it.
Okay. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
If you can join the live event on the 8th, which will be a day after this is published, then great. If not, just search for Patrick Canane on YouTube and the CiscoLive.com and see if they end up posting it there. All right. So one of the first things I want to talk about is one of the few new real hardware announcements that were made at Cisco Live around the Catalyst 9300X. This is a new switch, new to the 9300 line. Pretty impressive in terms of specs, and it definitely fits that kind of use case where you're doing kind of distributed networking, right? It's kind of in that distribution layer, just getting those 40 or 100 gig downlinks and dispersing them out to, I think it was up to 25 gigs per downlink on those switches, right?
Yeah, it's got either 12 ports or 24 ports, and all of those ports can either do 1 gig, 10 gig, or 25 gig on them.
Nice. And what was the fabric? The stacking speed on that? Was that 1 terabit?
So it depends on how you stack them. So if it's going to be 9300Xs together, they'll stack. You can stack up to 8 of them, just like the regular ones, and that will be a 1 terabit backplane on them. The caveat is if you take it and you stack it with a regular 9300, the backplane defaults down to the 480 gig backplane on that. So yes, you
Right,
can
which
mix and
makes
match them,
sense.
but it's just going to be the lower backplane speed.
Okay, well that's cool that you can mix and match them. I didn't even think about that, but that would be really cool if you've got a stack of 9300s rather than using the uplinks on those. You can put in distribution, redistribute it, have a couple more inputs, and or a couple more high end outputs, right? Depending on how you're setting up. But pretty cool stuff there. We'll be sure to include a link there. I don't know, Pat or Tom, if you guys had anything you wanted to add on the new 9300 there.
I don't. The only thing I thought was pretty cool that you mentioned though is that you can stack them with other models. That's actually
huge.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really
that's a
huge.
big deal.
It was kind of big too because this was finally the replacement of the 3850 XS switches. I don't know if you guys remember those.
Mhm.
And when we moved over to the Catalyst 9000 series switches, we kind of said, okay, are we bringing these over because we had the Catalyst 9500s? And 9500s were basically like our fiber aggregation switch. But I think where Cisco realized, hey, we kind of still need that switch is because a lot of customers liked having a single stack in like a distribution area where they had
Right.
uplink switches in there, and they also had downlink switches to their end users in the same stack. It made a lot of sense, share the same backplane and everything. And so I think because we had it in the 3850s and we were kind of missing that in the 9300s, they finally came out with those, and they upgraded them quite a bit because the old ones, the 3850s, were only doing like 1 gig and 10 gig. Now we can go all the way up to 25 gig, and obviously the backplane increase was significant too.
Yeah, that backplane is huge, but the backwards compatibility and just kind of auto negotiating down to the rate that the other Catalyst 9300s can handle is pretty cool. This actually goes well with the Catalyst micro switches that were announced a couple months ago, right? I mean, granted, you probably wouldn't use a 25 gig downlink to power one of these things, but if you're talking about all the fiber runs, right, from one switch to, or what do they call it, fiber to desk, I believe they refer to it as. This is a great opportunity because you're actually going to get a lot of fiber downlink ports, which, as you said, when they brought in the 9300 line, they didn't really have anything that would give you a lot of fiber downlinks. Now, this is, as far as performance and whatnot, a bit of an upgrade, right? So you may not want to use it on these micros. It might be too much power there, but mixing and matching a couple of these micros with using this as a distribution layer, not a bad setup.
I think also with these newer switches, you can integrate them with Thousand Eyes, right? You can use the Thousand Eyes with it, right?
Yeah, that'd be a great segue to the Thousand Eyes piece. There was definitely a lot of talk around the Thousand Eyes integration. Patrick, did you want to go into that a little bit more? No.
Dude, I'm reading the data sheets, man. I didn't watch any of this. I'm reading the data sheets and trying to just feed things in to maybe give good segues, or
It's all good.
I don't know, but
He's our color man.
I know not.
He's our hype man.
Thousand Eyes, what?
Yep. There we go. Sal or Tom, I'll let you. Tom, you want to jump in?
Yeah. So I mean, one of the big announcements was that Thousand Eyes, which we acquired. What was that, a year ago? Right?
Something like
I think
that.
so.
A little more than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we been ramping that up to get that in almost every aspect of our portfolio as we can, and this was a big announcement in that for DNA Advantage and Premier licenses, a Thousand Eyes agent will be available on the 9K switches. So being able to see that complete network visibility that runs into your network and then beyond, I think is going to be really important for customers, especially given the current landscape of remote work and all the SaaS, the software as a service offerings, 365, Salesforce, all that kind of stuff. Having that visibility and keeping your network as resilient and flowing freely as possible is going to be important. As well as the 9K announcement with Thousand Eyes, they also did as part of the AppD dashboard. Thousand Eyes will also be integrated into that, so you can really have like a common conversation between your software teams, your network teams, all being able to see the same metrics, to really make sure your application is running at its finest, whether it's at the application layer or the network layer. So
Right.
those were some definitely some big announcements there.
Yeah, and that's huge. And we did do an episode covering Thousand Eyes, I think right around the time we made the acquisition, or at least made the announcement about it. And at the time, the only person I was able to get was just someone that in his previous role happened to use Thousand Eyes. That could at least talk to us about what it did and kind of how it worked, right? I actually recently saw a demo of the Thousand Eyes platform and really went deep into how it works and adding agents and making and even recording your own script. So this was awesome to me. So one of the things they were talking about was, hey, if you want to be able to run these kind of checks to make sure that your website is doing what it's supposed to do, you can write these scripts where it'll basically, open this page, click here, wait, click here, wait, and it'll time all that thing, all those different pieces. Which of course, like, okay, writing scripts, that's cool and all, but there's actually a record button that you just hit the record button. It launches a browser. You go to the website you want. You click, 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 click. It records all of it, puts it into code, and then you can just run that. You can run that at whatever level you want, whenever you want. And that actually, rather than just doing pings or looking for those HTTP 200 responses, this actually goes through workflow, which is what Thousand Eyes, coupled up with AppD, right, really give you. AppD looking at the applications that exist in your data center, Thousand Eyes looking at everything else you really don't have control over. But then, of course, integrating with the Catalyst series, that's huge, right? Just gives you that full end-to-end networking visibility, so that when the application guys come to IT trying to blame the network, you can say, "Go ahead, blame the network. It's not me."
Yeah, that sounds pretty powerful.
Yeah, no, it's huge stuff. I definitely want to get that person on for a future episode, and we'll be sure to do that because it is some powerful stuff. Sal, I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
No, I think it's just kind of cool, and if you guys think back to like MediaNet that Cisco had years and years and years ago, it's finally something that we can actually use now. I think MediaNet was so under the covers that you always had to get like a third party in there to do like synthetic testing, and there was always some third party dashboard to really make it real, or else it was all CLI commands and everything. I think Thousand Eyes finally, with their dashboard and everything that we're able to do with that, takes that whole MediaNet conversation from 10 years ago and just, blows it up and expands it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Exciting stuff there. There were again, Cisco Live, huge event, lots of announcement here. Some of the stuff that I don't even think that we really were able to dive deep enough into to really understand to present. I'm sure over the course of the next couple months we'll be bringing in episodes to dive deeper into different pieces here. I do want to talk about the Meraki Cloud on-ramp piece. So this was really cool. So Todd Nightingale was on one of the first couple. He was one of the first couple sessions on day one, and I made a comment about this in the Discord channel that, let me tell you, I've met Todd Nightingale in person. He is that just, I don't even know how to describe it.
Ball of energy.
Oh my God. But it's genuine. That's how he is. He is so passionate about what he's doing, what Cisco is doing, what Meraki has been doing. And, it's everything that you saw. If you got a chance to see the event live, or you get a chance in the future, that is 100% real passion, man. That is not, there's no BS there. There's not an act. That is him. And he's really excited about this stuff. One of the things that I absolutely love about what Meraki has done and how it's really been integrating into the portfolio is it's really pushed, I think, Cisco to be more API aware, more API open, right? And API first, because a lot of the products that we're talking about now that are coming out, especially new things, it's all about API. It's all about integration. And Meraki was definitely there at the forefront to be able to really usher us into that age. And something like Umbrella, SIG, Secure Internet Gateway, all that stuff, right? The cloud on-ramp piece, the integration with Meraki and Umbrella is just seamless. And it was like that originally when we did it was the DNS security policies that you could tie to a different access point or an SSID. I've actually got it set up in my home here with the Meraki APs that I'm using here, where I have an umbrella policy that's created for my kids so that my kids don't go to certain sites. That policy, that umbrella policy, is tied to a Meraki group policy that is tied to those individual devices. So if those devices go on to a different SSID, let's say they figure out the password to my IoT network and they're trying to get around stuff, it doesn't matter because that ID is bound by the MAC address and it knows, hey, this is this kid's device and that is tied to this policy, which is tied to this umbrella policy, and therefore wherever they go in my network, they can't get around it. That was a first step that's been out there for a while, but now they're doing the same thing with the integration with SIG, where you can literally take a Meraki network and on ramp it into your umbrella SIG environment and just poof, everything's there. The tunnels are created for you, everything's up and running, and you're ready to go. Just simple, simple, simple. I don't know, Tom or Sal, if you had anything to add. I know Pat's just gonna say, yeah, Meraki.
All day.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add on the API front is just, Meraki being Meraki, they just made things so easy, right? Like I remember talking about, programming Cisco switches and APIs and Cisco switches. There's always one of those things that's like, okay, what do I need to do this? Do I have to learn Python? Is there other ways of doing stuff? And it was always sort of complicated with Meraki. If you want to start doing things with their API, you go right in the dashboard, you grab the API key, you download a program like Postman, or you can even use Meraki's. If you go to their developer webpage, they've even got a page that you can just like put your API key in and start doing get commands right from a web page. It's just like, it's kind of night and day the way you look at it with Meraki and the way you used to have to look at it with anything else.
Yeah, I mean, just the size of the books that teach you how to use these products should
Yep.
should have something to say about it, right? It's kind of like getting Meraki is kind of like getting an Apple device. There's no manual.
It's easy.
It just
It
works.
just works
Yeah.
and it's easy.
Yeah, no, and
One
there's
thing I
a
would
lot of
say
great use
about
cases. Go ahead.
more and more and more APIs coming out, and then also, the DevNet certifications coming out, and DevOps becoming more and more present. Um, it's something that I think we all know, but it doesn't hurt to say again, is that the more programming background that you have and the more understanding of how to work with APIs, what is an API,
Mm-hmm.
how to query them, and how to parse the data, uh, it's never going to hurt to get started if you haven't already.
Yep. Yeah, and for more information, I highly encourage everyone who hasn't listened already to check out the episode that we did with Susie Wee talking about DevNet and the importance of automation, orchestration. I mean, I can understand a lot of people that have been in IT, right? They've been doing CLI for a while, right? Just the name of this podcast, right? Conf T. Eventually, that is going to go into obscurity, right? So I didn't really think ahead when I named the show. Whatever, we'll hold on to it for for old time's sake. But programmability, orchestration, coding, all that stuff. Most people that get into networking, I know myself included, I got into networking because I didn't want to do the programming, right? I didn't really like the coding. Like I could take someone else's code and, kind of poke around through it. And I think the those who can't create innovate, right? Like that was pretty much all I did. I would hack away at it and make it work. But when it came to like starting something from scratch, but again, there's a lot of pieces in here that it's just a matter of drag and drop, especially with things like SecureX, right? With the orchestration piece, it's not, there's little to no code there, but understanding how these pieces work, understanding how they flow. Cisco has made a big investment and a big push for people to get their DevNet. And I know it's something that I said I was going to do, and I've got my Python book around here somewhere.
Yeah, man.
I'll add one thing to that, and some of my customers, have said, oh, we're a 3-person IT shop. We don't need to worry about that. That was the case maybe 5-10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
When you had these massive IT departments supporting, tens of thousands of servers, switches, stuff like that. Yeah, I mean they've been programming for years, or did with what they could, what was available at the time. But I mean now, you kind of have to get into that space, no matter how small or large your IT department is. I mean, that's just kind of where the industry is going. And the beauty of it is, though, there's no shortage of resources to help you get there. Like our DevNet portals alone, as Sal and Bryan mentioned, I mean, they're great for just, learning and starting out from scratch. I mean, you don't really have to have much of a background in it to pick it up. Yes, it's not the most fun thing to learn sometimes, but once you get it, because I had the same problem you did, Bryan. In college, I started out comp sci. I hated it. I loved IT,
Yeah.
loved networking, but I had the same problem you did. I couldn't take something that didn't exist and create something out of that. Right.
Right.
I was always able to hack things together. And, in my later years here, I, have dove back into Python, and I'm like, you know what, actually these things are starting to make sense. So I definitely encourage anyone, small, large IT department to take a look at it.
So, 2, 3, maybe 4 things about that. First off, for me, when I would get frustrated and it would suck, I'd take a break, and sometimes a break would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe more months, right? But then, when I would come
for
back,
like minutes, hours,
when I
months.
would come back, no, because I would get too busy,
Yeah.
because learning it is not easy. If
No.
if your brain isn't that wired that way, which mine isn't, it's not very easy to learn. But when you take those breaks and you come back, usually what fueled me to do it was frustration. I didn't like the way things were. I didn't like all the work I had to put into something. So the level of frustration I had would fuel me towards learning more with programming. And mostly it was like copying stuff out of Stack Overflow and then making it do what I needed it to do.
Right.
But when you would take those breaks and come back, you would ramp up faster because you already had some exposure to it. And that feeling of getting some sort of quick return on your time would make you kind of like be like, okay, this isn't so bad. But then it would suck again, and I'd take a break and come back. And now I feel more into it. But the things that I would say about it are that, one, the official cert guide by Jason Gooley and another Cisco employee, I can't remember who, is awesome. It's great. I wish that the official cert guide for the DevNet Associate was out when I first started learning. It's awesome. The CBT Nuggets course for the DevNet Associate is also awesome. And then going back to talking about the the small IT shop versus the large IT shop, and whether or not you need to be doing programming, the more and more and more stuff that's coming out is making it more like, if you have programming experience, you can get more out of the product, right?
Mhm.
And then
Right.
furthermore, back in 2013, right? This is a long time ago in terms of talking about programming and DevNet and DevOps and all that, right? Because it's really just blown up in the last 2 or so years. But going back in 2013, I was taking a course with Global Knowledge, and I met a guy who worked at JPMC. And while we were there, it was a collaboration course. While we were there, I got to talking to him about how he likes working at JPMC and what are some of the things that they look for in candidates. And he asked me if I had any programming background, like even the ability to just do like Hello World, which I didn't because I had no programming background at all. He said they wouldn't even look at you for hiring. And this was 2013.
Wow.
So, if your current IT shop doesn't do it, that's awesome. If you're happy where you are and you think that it's going to last till retirement, but if not, and you want to be able to pivot at some point in your career on your own choice, or because your employer made the choice, you're going to want that programming background to be able to, even if you just know how to do like run one script that does something really small, at least you have that to talk to. But now I'm getting off path with it. So
I'll add
that
one
was my
thing.
little spiel.
Probably the only thing that I can add to this conversation is that even Cisco for the CSAP program, and that's a program that I went through back in 2007, which they take people from college, students usually a year or two removed from college, and they throw you down in North Carolina for a year, hardcore training and everything, and you basically become a systems engineer. I do recruiting. I go to a couple colleges, talk to students about it. And one of the prereqs to even getting into the SE program now is you need to have a programming background. And, back in 2007, it wasn't even a prereq whatsoever. And I think they started implementing that like 3 or 4 years ago at this point. And I found really good people that I thought would be really great SEs out in the field. And they wouldn't even look at them because they didn't have programming experience on their resume.
Wow. The future is programmability. And,
Yep.
besides just being able to have at least some background in it to be able to get a job or to expand in your career, right? Get a promotion, get into a job that you want. The other piece too, to go back to Tom, your original point, the small IT shops that only have 2 or 3 guys or gals, the the need for automation and orchestration is greater there, because
Mhm.
you guys all know I came from a K-12 background. Everything that had a circuit board, I touched, I managed. Phones, Active Directory, Windows servers, firewalls, web content filtering for 3,000 users, right? It's a lot. It's a lot of hats to wear. And you know what? Something's going to break, something's going to happen, and by virtue of my own firewall logs here at my house, the stuff that keeps getting blocked because it's just getting script kiddies that are running it and port scanning stuff and just trying to break into my firewall here, it's constant. You need to
Mhm.
have automation, especially in security, to be able to take action when something happens, right? When this happens plus this happens, okay, this is cause for something bigger. We talked about it a bit last episode with Keith Manville on the Cisco Secure Endpoint. Being able to take action, run scripts, integrate with SecureX, that's all programmability. This is going to be a recurring theme in our episodes. So I think it's something that we all need to take seriously, myself included. And actually, Pat, I'm really glad that we had you on this episode, especially for that piece. Right, you're more than just a hype man now.
Thank you,
He's
sir.
contributing.
Yeah. Hey, if you want to talk about the DevNet Associate, I went and got it, so we can talk about it sometime, maybe another episode. But how did we get to here? We were talking about APIs and stuff, right? We were talking about Meraki.
Yeah, how did we get
Um,
here?
I know we already
Cloud on
talked
ramp.
about.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we covered cloud on ramp now. So yeah, I think the next thing we want to talk about is the passwordless authentication. Now, I think we're gonna definitely have an episode where we dive into this a bit more, but I think what this is, if I'm understanding it correctly, is really just an expansion of what Duo is doing today, right? With multi-factor. The idea being, Pat, Tom, you said it best before. It was you said it best. Something something you have, and that now it's what?
Yeah, so traditional MFA was something you have and something you know, like a password.
Mm-hmm.
The passwordless is still something you have, but something you are. So, we look most to biometrics for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, whether it's facial recognition, fingerprint on a phone, something like that. Yep.
Right. So, because right now, like when I log into my phone, right, to just turn it on and get into it and use my apps, I don't have to type in a password. I use my fingerprint. If you trust and use the facial recognition stuff on some of the phones, you can do that. But the idea with just regular enterprise applications, right? And we use a ton of them here, a lot of SaaS applications and other cloud-based applications. Everything's over the web, right? Everything is through our single sign-on, and there's a multi-factor piece. We put in our credentials, we then get kicked over to our Duo single sign-on. Whatever the rules are in place, maybe we'll automatically be allowed in because we've authenticated in the last 12 hours and we're in a place that allows us to do that. And these are all rules that can be set. Please refer back to the Duo episode for that. But the idea here now is that instead of having to put in a password every time, moving over to something like device certificate plus, YubiKey, or device certificate plus password push, or fingerprint plus,
Mhm.
the Duo multi-factor push, stuff like that. Just being able to expand upon that a little bit more and not have to rely on passwords, because let's face it, passwords suck.
Yeah, so it seems to me like you've been mostly talking about it from an end user's perspective, right? Which is good because every time that I have to renew my password, that annoys me, right? And it's difficult to manage, and you might have multiple different passwords. But
Right.
let's talk about the cost to the business. Passwords can be compromised; that can cost you billions of dollars right there. Your users have to manage the passwords. That's costing them time, which is costing you money. And then how many tickets probably go to the help desk each year? For password reset or password problems in general, and
Yep.
then that's costing money of the end user and the IT support staff. So for the business, there's definitely value here.
Yep. Yeah, there's that email we get every time we have to renew our password, that from
Yeah.
Cisco IT, that basically says every password that has to be reset costs the company X dollars. And it's not a lot,
Yep. Yeah,
but
you're
based
right.
on the number of users they have, plus the number of times
Hmm.
they make you reset password and the percentage of people that screw it up, it costs the company X millions of dollars. And it's like, whoa. that's why they're sending emails out 2 months before you're ready to change your password. Like, hey, it's gonna expire. Figure out a new one. Change it. Do it right.
Yeah, so I see this as win-win, right? Because it's win-win for us as end users. It's win-win for the company. It's win-win for the security teams and the IT teams that would be resetting the passwords.
Yep.
I'm interested to see how it will be implemented and what we'll have that we, maybe it's something like you said. You can do another session on it and
Yeah, I think
see.
it was really just kind of teased to us a little bit. I think it's actually going to be pushed out in the next couple months, I believe, if I remember.
Yeah, I
correctly.
believe
Beta
that,
over the summer, right?
Public preview in the summer, and then
Yeah.
generally available by the end of the year, I believe.
Yeah. Again, it'll be really interesting to see how it works in practice, both from a user and administration standpoint. And to your point, Pat, like it's when I say password sucks, I meant both sides of the coin,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
from a user standpoint, managing it, changing it, remembering it, but then also from the administration side, getting them compromised. I mean, nowadays credential stuffing attacks, they're highly successful. There's so many different breaches that occur where passwords are dumped and sold on the dark web, or eventually they just go freebie. Wasn't there like the 500 million user Facebook password dump that just went public now, that they just dumped it out for free? So my cousin from my wife's side of the family, her personal Outlook account got hacked, and she's an older woman. She's trying to, she's like, I don't know what's going on. I can't figure out what's going on. Ended up sending an email to everyone asking for how to buy an iTunes gift card or something for her niece. Everyone knew it was a bogus email, but what killed me was I started investigating it, and I'm like, no, these people logged into your account, and not only did they send the email to everyone on her contact list asking for this, they created a rule in her Outlook to take anything that came back in, archive it, and forward it over to another email address that looked very, very
That's smart.
similar. It was I'm telling you, man, it was really smart. And I was scared because of the way, and I'm not trying to bash anyone here, but because of those security methods that were set up on her account, which were none, we had to change her phone number because it wouldn't allow us to do a call number to verify. It only do text. And for some reason, she had put her home phone as the only number. So we couldn't do that. So we were finally able to log
SMS
in.
on the landline?
Yeah, you can't text the landline. So we had to change it, but Microsoft made us wait 30 days to do anything else to verify that change was okay. So anyone else could have hopped in and canceled it, including the other people. So when I saw that rule, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be very careful here. I'm going to turn it off. They're going to notice that there's not email coming in anymore, but we can't change the password so they can hop back in and turn it right back on. Or that's why I didn't delete it. I just turned it off. But like, this is the stuff that happens all the time. And, trying to get her to turn on some sort of multi-factor, I wanted to. I was working on that, but she's got a flip phone, right? She's got an 8-year-old HP laptop that I've replaced the keyboard on twice already, and the battery like 2 or 3 times also. She just wants to log in, get her email, and play solitaire, and that's it.
Yeah, Minesweeper.
Yeah, so it's tough, but these are the risks out there.
Well, it sounds like she could benefit from this new offering that's coming out, man. This passwordless.
Yeah, just got to get her a smartphone.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, Sal, anything you want to add?
No, I'm good on that front.
Just making sure you were paying attention.
I'm here.
He's reading the manual on a smart fan right now.
That's it. Got to go install that.
All I did was just hook a Wemo smart switch to it. I didn't even buy, because I saw that too, and I'm like, you know what? I have the remote. I can turn the speed up and down and change the direction, but I just want to, tell Google to turn it on and off.
I mean, I got to tell you though, too, like all this smart home stuff, like I've been putting more and more into my house. Sometimes it's just easier to go to the dang light switch and flip it on. If I really want to like stand on the other side of the room and scream halfway across the room to where the Alexa is to turn something on. Yes.
Get the Alexas that go in the light switch.
I've got one of those too.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Like I said, I try a little bit of this out, a little bit of that out. Some stuff I think is really cool. Other stuff I'm like, this is kind of more gimmicky than what it's worth.
And you can find out more on Cisco's YouTube page at Cisco Sal.
There you go.
Oh man. There were also some announcements around SASE, not so much anything really, new in terms of kind of revolutionary in terms of the product set, right? I think SASE has been something that Cisco is very well placed to be able to deliver on, just because of the breadth of the portfolio that we had when Gartner kind of came up with that term and what was in it. We were like, yeah, we got that. Okay, cool. We'll put it into this little, yeah, that we call that SASE. Um, but there is new SASE offerings coming out, as well as in the future some a single consumption kind of service, right, where you can just pick and choose how to go. I think a lot of the announcements around subscriptions and hardware and software really were centered around making it easier to consume, easier to buy, easier um, to kind of predict their expenses, right? And I think that's going to be the future of Cisco kind of going forward, both on the software and subscription side, which you've been seeing already for the past couple of years in terms of enterprise agreements and stuff, but moving forward and being a little bit more flexible, right? Right now, a lot of the enterprise agreements, you can have multi-architectural, but it's really like a DNA EA plus a security EA or plus a collab EA, right? There weren't anything like I could just take these products from all these different architectures and put them into one agreement and call it a day. I think we're going to probably see that come down the road. Yeah, no promises here. This is kind of off the cuff here, but that's the direction that we're seeing Cisco going, and I'll leave it up to the rest of the panel here to chime in on that. Tell me I'm wrong or agree, whichever.
No, so the what you're alluding to was what they call Cisco Plus, which is going to be our new consumption based model. I mean, the industry's going this way, really driven obviously by cloud, and
Yeah.
customers really seem to like this because they can much better predict, how they can grow, what their, kind of predict what their costs are going to be much easier, and especially if you have a seasonal spike in traffic or compute needs, that's like one of the models that we can have. We're going to offer, I believe, pay as you grow, and what was it? What was the terms we used? Pay per use, pay as you grow. So pay
Right.
per use allows you to scale up and down. So if you have seasonal spikes, you can obviously throw more money at it and get more use out of your equipment versus just a pay as you grow model where just over time you're just continuing to increase your spend. So kind of what we were talking about before with the DevNet stuff. Cloud is really what's driving a lot of the modern, a lot of where this industry goes,
Absolutely.
and APIs really skyrocketed when cloud became a thing.
Yeah.
Because it just with serverless computing, being able to scale up, with just simple running of a script, that's something that was a little harder to do with traditional infrastructure. But when you have that hybrid model, you're really set quite well, especially if you know how to automate. So
Well,
bringing
and
it
and
right
and
back
this has
around,
been
Brian.
no, this has been the allure of all those kind of cloud services, right? Like this is why AWS took off and why so many companies that have used AWS or Azure or Google Cloud Compute or whatever it's called, GCP, um,
Hmm.
the reason that those companies have been able to be so successful is they didn't have to worry about investing in the infrastructure. They could just kind of start small and scale up just by kind of throwing more money at the problem, right?
Yep.
It's a bit more difficult when you have to deal with all of that equipment on site. Now, there's definitely pros and cons with having things on site versus SaaS applications versus infrastructure as a service, right? There's
Right.
there's there's key pieces here that you need to look at to determine what applications, what business applications, what services you should be running in those different facets, right? If it's something that you can subscribe to, like I'm thinking something like Epic or, whatever for healthcare, and everything's there and they worry about the infrastructure, you just give them a certain amount of money every month and use that service, go with that. If you need a little bit more agility and control but you want it in someone else's data center, infrastructure as a service all the way. But the industry has been going that direction, and that's what makes companies like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud that much more appealing. So
Mhm.
Cisco's looking at it and saying, okay, we're gonna go that direction too. So really early stages here, a lot of stuff that's going to be, kind of shaking out, and I'm sure we're going to be seeing more announcements and seeing how it turns up as we go. But really kind of another sign that Cisco is really going where IT is going, right?
Yeah.
So
Initial offerings will be mostly in the data center,
mhm.
mostly around data center. There'll also be a SaaS offering, a SASE offering, I should say. Those will be coming probably sometime, later in the summer. But I think the end goal is to have, all of our portfolio, be offered as this type of service, in the future. So
Nice. Exciting stuff for sure. So we're coming up on the end of our time here. I want to give you all a chance to kind of say a closing thought. Pat, I'm going to start with you, our hype man.
Yeah. Well, one closing thought is that collaboration is always on the back end. All the other technologies seem to kind of drown it out. And so I'm going to toss in some WebEx Contact Center stuff here.
Okay.
With the new WebEx Contact Center 2.0, which is right now available in the Americas, there are other PSTN options that we have here. So there's 5 different ones that we can do. And there is a gentleman, if you give me just a moment, he did a great session on it. Um, Hussein Ali. He's a technical marketing engineer, distinguished speaker at Cisco Live, and he did a session which is BRK CCT 2013, right? And so if you wanted to see anything that was new in terms of collab, and it was in Cisco Live 2021, go check out his breakout session because I think it does a pretty good job showing how the PSTN hooks into the WebEx Contact Center, and he even does a brief overview of the WebEx calling as well.
Nice. We'll be sure to include a link for that in the show notes.
Yeah, I can
And
send that over.
also a link to your YouTube channel as well. Really appreciate everything you do. And I know that the people that subscribe to your channel do as well. So,
Yeah, thanks, man. Also, I sent for the Meet the Author live event later on this week.
mhm.
I sent that, I think, directly to you,
Okay.
a direct link for that.
Be sure to put that on the show
And
notes
again,
as well.
thanks for having me on again.
No,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Sal, any closing thoughts there?
Just a couple things on collaboration. So there was an announcement too with some updated pricing around a lot of the Cisco video endpoints. So the WebEx
Yes.
Desk camera, which I've got right here. If you're looking at the video on the CompT with your SC YouTube channel, you can see it here. This thing's actually really good. I'm going to end up doing a video review on it versus the Logitech Brio. But there was call it a price drop. But if you have a Cisco Enterprise Agreement for collaboration or an active user contract for WebEx, you can actually get these for like $150.
Yeah, I saw that. That's
That's gonna
pretty
be
cool.
street price. So that's huge. That's actually less than a Logitech Brio. And from a spec feature comparison, this thing's actually better than a Logitech Brio. So that's going to be huge. We came out with a WebEx Desk Hub. I haven't had a chance to look at that yet. That was announced a little while ago. But the cool thing about that is it's basically like a Touch 10 and a codec, a video codec, kind of built into one. And you can walk in with your cell phone, drop your cell phone on it, and it's going to recognize that, hey, this is Sal. Now this is going to become Sal's endpoint, and it's going to be his telephone, it's going to be his video endpoint, and everything. We recognize that it's Sal that's there. Street price on that one came down to $589. Again, you need the enterprise agreement. The big two that I'm excited about is the WebEx Desk Pro and the WebEx Desk. So the Desk Pro, if you guys remember when we came out with that, I think the list price was like $11,000 or $12,000. We got the street price down of that thing to $2,500. That's a 4K screen,
That's huge.
desktop charging for your Mac or your PC through USB-C, subwoofer inside of it, high quality speakers, beamforming microphones at the top, 1080p camera with the motion detection and moves around and kind of follows you and everything. I mean that's a legit high end endpoint for $2,500. And then there's a little brother of that that's coming out, the WebEx Desk. That the list price of that, or sorry, the street price of that is going to be around $1,200. $1,249 is what they advertised it for. A little bit smaller of a display, and it's going to have a scaled down resolution. I think it's going to be 1080p. So that's slated to come out, I think, in August, September timeframe. So I think we still have a couple months on that guy. But the WebEx Desk Pro is out today.
Nice. I think those products are announced at the WebEx One event that we
They
did
were.
the cover on. But this, as far as the street price is getting bumped down drastically for customers that have a Flex EA, that's huge, right? Because the Desk Pro, I've got one. I love it. It's great. I'd have a hard time justifying that much of a cost, but $2,500, that's definitely something a lot easier to swallow for sure. So thank you, Sal. And again, we'll be sure to include a link to your YouTube channel as well, where we can eagerly await the installation of your smart fan. Looking forward to that.
I'm going to do that video now just because of you, Brian. You know that, right?
I hope so. You better. I mean, I've promised all my listeners that you're going to do it. So
Sal,
you got to do it now.
coming.
Okay.
Don't blame Brian.
Yeah, exactly. Don't.
Yeah, he's
don't.
making an
You
excuse.
were going
I'll
to
make
do
sure
it
to
already.
call you out. Brian told me to do this video.
He saw that on Amazon and was like, "Oh, this is gonna make me money on Cisco."
Oh
site."
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Because everybody wants to know about some random smart fan.
Oh God.
You bought the smart fan just to do the video. You didn't even want it.
Can you at
Yeah.
least put a Cisco sticker on the fan so that
Sure.
it's it's related to
around.
Cisco? Yeah, just something. Just like,
It's actually
here's
really
our
cool fan.
Cisco
It's-
smart fan.
It only has 3 blades on it, so I got to see how well it moves the air around.
Oh my God. Oh my God. All right. Before we get any more off track, Tom, I'll give you the opportunity to give any closing thoughts here.
Yeah, thanks. I just to say to all the listeners, Cisco Live is always a great opportunity to learn more about not only just what's coming with Cisco, but just about Cisco products in general. So there will be, after the 3-month mark, there will be a whole host of sessions that'll be available to the general public. You don't need to pay for them.
Right.
That are great. A lot of them are like, just an example. I don't know if this is one specific for the 3-month mark, but an example would be like, best practices for firewall deployment or best practices for ICE, stuff like that. We usually recommend a lot of times when customers, are just looking for more info on a product, we always point them to the Cisco Live website, because all the previous Cisco Live sessions we've had over the last few years are available on there, and it's a great resource. We have some really great speakers who talk to a lot of our products. That's all I got on Cisco Live, but just as another show plug. So we are going to be expanding, Sal kind of alluded to it before. We are going to be expanding to YouTube. So we will be adding to our YouTube channel all of our future episodes, as well as we're going to try to be more active on stuff like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. So we'll, kind of post the links to all of those. Not only be posting about episode updates, but even just, Cisco or general technology updates in general. So follow us there, follow us on Discord, and
Yeah.
That's all I got, Brian.
Join the Discord server for sure. It's a great group of people there. I mean, I cannot stress it enough. Tom and I were talking with them during the Cisco Live event, and just exciting to see how excited they were about Cisco Live, and it's just really cool. But as Tom said, we'll be expanding to YouTube, and I have got a couple smart switches here. Maybe I will go ahead and install those.
There you
Got my
go.
little Wi-Fi
Don't get
Wemo
electrocuted.
switch. So, hey, I'm a licensed electrician. I don't think you are, so I'm going to be checking your works out. So we'll
I'm
see.
Italian. We
We'll
don't
see.
need certifications or nothing like that.
I'm not even going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. With that, we're going to sign off. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining the panel today, and thank you for listening to ConfP with your SE. Be sure to subscribe, like, and all that social media stuff, and don't forget to save that config.